Welcome everybody to Whose Art Is It Anyway, where nothing is made up and all my income matters. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be going over today what I made in the year 2024 as an artist. I'm going to go over with you guys how I made that money, where it came from, what I plan to do differently in the coming year, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, if you find this video useful, entertaining, relatable, anything like that, go ahead and give me a subscribe, like, comment, do whatever you want to do to my video. Even if you hate it, go ahead and hate it for me and we'll keep going. So we're going to go ahead and look here so this is my convention list for 2025. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with my income from 2024. I should let you guys know that most of my income is from convention sales. This is the first year that I really started taking artwork and selling at conventions seriously. I had done a couple of shows in prior years and done okay. I've never lost money at shows, but I was sort of dipping my toe in the water, trying to get the feel for things and what things would be like. And this was the first year going into 2024. This was the first year that I knew I was going to take it seriously. I knew I was going to try and do this as a side income for myself, and maybe one day hopefully take it full time and just be an artist. That would be fantastic. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is my first source of income. This is convention sales from 2024. Let's go ahead and take a look at Lubbock Con first. Lubbock Con was the first show of the year. It was in February. So in February, we had $559 in sales. This is a 2-day show, Saturday, Sunday. Now, if I remember correctly, the Saturday for this show was pretty solid. Like, I made a little over $500, and then the Sunday for this show was absolutely god-awful. It was terrible. I made like $40 on that Sunday. I was having issues with another vendor who was selling like Photoshopped, copied, ripped off images off on the internet, and it was driving me crazy. But anyways, the booth cost for that show was $200. Fortunately, I live here in Lubbock, so the hotel was $0, the food was $0, and the travel cost was $0, which made my net profit for that show $359, which I don't think is terrible for the first show of the year, for the first time I've done a show in a really long time. Here, looking at Lubbock Con, I was getting ready for other shows in the future and trying to figure out what I need to do to improve my shop, what sort of inventory I need to have. I was doing a lot of research online to see what other sellers were having. And I was trying to bolster like my print portfolio to try and sell more prints, adding different sorts of inventory to that as well. So that's why as we go along, the numbers sort of get bigger, but we'll go ahead and take a look at the next one. Yellow City Comic Con was the second show of the year, which was in April. This show is in Amarillo, and Amarillo, I've been to a show in Amarillo before, a couple of years before this, and I didn't make a whole lot of money at that show either, but this one I made a little bit more than Lubbock Con. I made $589 in sales. My booth cost, however, was more expensive. It was $250. The hotel was $124. I spent like $30 on food that weekend. It wasn't a whole lot. Typically, whenever I go to shows that are a couple days, I don't really eat very well. I don't eat throughout the day. And I usually have like a breakfast at the hotel and then dinner at night, and I'm good to go. But travel cost for this was like $15. I usually take my Prius, so I get really good gas mileage. So $15 is about what I spent on travel cost, which made my profit for that show only $170. Now, the unfortunate thing about this show is for booth cost, what's crazy is they're increasing it next year to either $300 or $350, and they're not having artist tables for these. All of them are just exhibitor tables, and there's no differentiation between exhibitors and artist alley, which is stupid, I think, but they're either changing it to $300 or $350, which is an outrageous amount for a 2-day show in Amarillo, which is like not a good city. I mean, it's an okay city, but it's not a great city to be selling artwork in. Anyways, I digress. So $170 in profit for that show. Dallas Fan Expo was my next show. That was in June. I had $670 in sales for that show, and this show I learned a ton of stuff at. I thought it was fantastic. My booth partner next to me was really good. He was really friendly and showed me a lot of things. And I got to see, because his booth was super busy all weekend, and I got to see a lot of things that people were buying, a little bit of the merchandise that they were selling. Smaller prints were a really big thing for him, so that's when I got the idea of starting to sell smaller prints. The booth cost for that was $370. The fortunate thing was I didn't have any cost on the hotel because I stayed with a buddy, and he was super nice of him to let me sleep on the floor in his hotel. I spent about $40 in food that weekend, and I think I spent like $35 to drive to that show. It's about 5 hours away from me, and again, it's in my Prius, so I don't spend a whole lot of money on gas. And so my profit for that show is about $325, which isn't terrible. Not as good as Lubbock Con, but again, I learned a ton from this show. My next show was Anime El Paso, which was right after that. Like, it was 2 weeks after Dallas Fan Expo, I went to Anime El Paso. It was very short, the time between those two shows. I also did $670 at that show, oddly enough. The booth cost, thank goodness, was only at $200 for that show. The hotel was around $120. The food that I spent, probably around $30. This, again, was a 2-day show. The travel cost was $35. El Paso is, again, about 5 hours away from me. And the profit is about $285 on that show. That was actually pretty solid show. I wasn't too disappointed with that one. I don't know if I'll do it again this coming year. We have Fan Expo Denver. Fan Expo Denver was my best show of the year until I got to the last show. I did $1,043 at the show. The booth cost was higher, which was $410. This is a 4-day show. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday show, and it's around July 4th weekend. Fortunately, we stayed with a friend, so the hotel cost was $0, and my buddies paid for food all weekend. That weekend, they were awesome to me, and so my food cost was $0, and my travel cost was $0 because I helped a buddy drive his merchandise up to the show and back. So I didn't have to pay for travel cost. He paid for the gas. And my profit for that show was $633. For Chicago Fan Expo, that was in August, in mid-August, I believe, like the second or third weekend in August. 3-day show. That one was not great. It wasn't even as good as Dallas Fan Expo, and I had way more merchandise at this time. I did $656. Now, it wasn't a terrible show, but it was just like nobody was really buying anything for me, and I was in a weird spot. So the booth cost for that was a little bit less. It's $370. I didn't have any money to spend on a hotel. I stayed with a buddy. $0 in food again, but my travel cost for that was $268. So I made $18 at that show. So I don't know that I will be doing Chicago Fan Expo next year. Next up, we had Hub City Comic Con. This was $768 that I made in sales. It was a 2-day show here in Lubbock, and my booth cost was $200 for that. Obviously, I didn't have any other expenses, so I made $568 for that show. That's a no-brainer for me. I really like doing that one. Hub City Comic Con, and the company that does these are really good, actually. Dallas Fan Festival was terrible. No, it wasn't terrible. It was just not great. I don't know that I'll do it again next year. It was like a 2-day show in Dallas, and they gave me a discounted rate because I was doing Dallas Fan Expo. But I made $470 at that show. My booth cost was only $185. My hotel was $140. Food about $30. Travel cost was about $35. And my profit for that show was only $80. So again, I don't know if I'll do it again next year. A lot of people were saying because it was so close to the election that we just weren't making good money. People were scared of spending money. Following that, I did a show called Permian Basin Comic Con, which is in Midland, Texas. And Midland has always been awesome for me. This is also a 2-day show that I did $1,055 at. My booth cost was $300 because when I signed up for it, they didn't have any artist tables left, which I fixed this time around. So my booth cost is only $175 next time. My hotel was $0 because I stayed with a friend, and my food was $0 because they were awesome and they paid for dinner all weekend. And travel cost was $15 because it's a couple hours away from me. So my profit for that show was $740, which was my best show of the year. And I also did this like affordable art sale, which was like a 3-hour sale one day where I made like $64 on stickers. So I'll also count that in there. That was like the weekend of Thanksgiving. Now, my other sales that I had for the year, I had a bunch of commissions, not a whole lot because I don't really advertise it, which is something that I'm going to fix again for next year. I want to advertise commissions and open up commissions quite a bit on social media because it makes the most sense and I have fun doing them. And typically clients are really easy to work with here. Sometimes you get somebody that's really picky. I've had those in the past. So I had a bunch of commissions, and then fortunately I had a bunch of original art sales as well. So this is what I had in original art sales, and the total for commissions and original art sales that I had for this year were $1,205. The total profit that I had for convention sales were $3,242. And my expenses after prints and stickers and stuff for my merchandise, the expenses were $902.59, which made my net profit for the year 2024 $3,544.41. And that's not bad. Now, I was hoping to make a little bit more, but to be honest, I always hear that businesses aren't profitable the first 2 years that they're open. So this being my first year that I'm really taking seriously selling artwork at conventions and doing commissions and working as an artist, I can't complain. Plus, I was able to work on a lot of projects this year. I was able to get a cover for Spawn as well, which I haven't been paid for yet and it hasn't come out yet. But that's opening my doors for stuff in the future that's really exciting. So that was my outlook for 2024. What I plan on doing next year for 2025, I plan on opening up an online shop that's not Etsy because Etsy is terrible nowadays. I plan on opening up an online shop that's connected to all my social media. I don't know what I'm going to do just yet. I haven't decided. I don't want to use Shopify because I don't think I'm big enough to support like the monthly fees that you have to pay. So maybe doing like a Wix thing would be ideal. I'm not exactly sure. I will figure that out. But I will get an online shop going next year in 2025 and also make that one of my sources of income. I also have some goals for monetization for YouTube and for TikTok and monetizing Instagram. I will be making that video as well. It should upload around the same time. If you ever want to check out vlogs that I have made, I've been starting to make vlogs recently. Like I did one for Permian Basin Comic Con. I did one for Dallas Fan Festival. If you ever want to check those out, you can check them out right there. I'll put them up in the card. But yeah, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, let me know down in the comments. I would greatly appreciate any feedback, anything, any tips, any tricks, any advice that you guys may have found as fellow artists, or if you're interested in getting into the art business yourself. This might be like a realistic thing that you're looking at as far as like a first time convention artist. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Y'all have a great week. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Love you too, bye.